Hey, what's going on, guys? This is the Edora SMG kit that I've been working on, very early prototype, but it is functioning. So this video is going to go over all the cool little details about it. So if you're interested, definitely stay tuned. I'm not going to go into detail as far as the design process because that would make this video way too long, but I will say that I designed this kit basically backwards. And by backwards, I mean, normally you get a replica of something real, like AR, MP, whatever, and you have to make your components fit inside of that body. That usually results in some sort of compromise as far as maybe the hop up or something. This kit was designed from the ground up with HPA airsoft in mind. The very first thing I did is I modeled the engine, bucking, inner barrel, arm, all that stuff, and I placed it in a CAD file, and then I worked around that. So that gave me no limitation as far as how I wanted to make the hop up or the engine clamp or anything like that. So that's why I say it's reverse. I kind of work from the inside out, and as I start to break this gun apart, you will see that. As cool as the outside may look, all the magic's on the inside. And once I break it apart, you'll be able to see that. So let's start with the outside and work our way in. You can see the kit here. The front attachments, I have 3 different versions. So this is a printed little compensator that is removable. I also have your 14 negative threads. And then I'm also working on a little suppressor here that I wrap with this cotton sheet fish tank filter thing. It's pretty soft and it works really good, but this also attaches at the front the same way through that pin, and you can pretty much wrap anything around this core, but that's extra. You can see 2 takedown pins, one in the back, one in the front. If you remove the front one, you can remove the front cap, and this is actually where your Allen wrench for all your bolts is stored in the front cap. And if you want to swap it out for, let's say, the threaded one, toss that on there and pop the pin in, and then you can screw whatever attachment you want on the front. Pull this back out, remove that, and you can see this is where the battery and FCU is stored. There's actually a little cutout on the right side here for your FCU, so like the bigger ones, you can store that in there, and there's plenty of room for the battery as well. Onto the back, you have your telescoping stock. Push this little button here, and you're able to retract it. Clicks into place, locks in. It's not too wobbly for being 3D printed and carbon tubes. I can't really complain about it. And then to collapse it, same thing. Simply push that down and then push it in, and it'll lock into place. I'm sure if you rip this stock out fast enough, you can actually pull it all the way through because there's no stop. But I haven't done that yet. You're really going to have to yank it in order to get this out in one clean pull. But in order to remove the stock, you saw go to that last position, push up the little tab again, and then you can take your stock out. On your top, 3, 6, 9, 12, whatever you want to call it, clock system, you have your Picatinny rail. Nothing special, but you can put whatever attachments you want on there, and they do its job. You can see little backup iron sights. These are kind of just like early toss on there, not really spend a lot of time. I wanted iron sights on there just in case somebody were to get this and they want to put optics. You can use those. So it's some sort of aiming system. They're low profile enough. And I think I'm going to do a flat top eventually, but I do like having some sort of sight on there as a backup. In this little cutout here, you can see the hop up dial. You can't really tell. There's a plus with an arrow and then a little notch, and that's where your adjustment is. Very firm. It's not too easy to push, and it stays in place. So that's your hop up dial right there. There's nothing right now on the left side. It's mainly all on the right. Trigger, mag release, trigger guard, mag release. Push it with your index finger. I am eventually going to make a thumb paddle that goes over to this one that you can activate it kind of like a pistol mag release. But that's kind of a luxury item. I just wanted one for now, and it's working great. You can see the trigger has some set screws in it. I do need to drill some holes in the model so that you can get an Allen wrench in there easily. And that's your adjustment as far as your travel for back and forth with the trigger. Right now I have it adjusted pretty good for this kit. So fully adjustable trigger. That's also subject to change, but it's adjustable trigger as of now. Grip slash magwell, whatever you want to call it on this, has a raised texture surface that eventually will change, but I wanted to test it out to see how it would feel. And it's pretty good as far as giving it a little bit of grip in case you're not using gloves or whatever. The magwell is flared and beveled on the inside. So the ARP9 mags fit in there, lock into place. Mag release up here, remove it. They are a little stiff right now, but they're not a pain to put in and take out. They're just take a little bit of force. There's no wobble and they feed absolutely perfect. Before I dive into the internals of this, I will show you a cool feature. If you remove these two bolts, which holds this cap on, I'll show you something cool about this kit. With that back cap removed, you can see the back of your engine. I already unplugged the solenoid connector. And a cool feature about this kit, for whatever reason, if you need to take your engine out, instead of disassembling everything, you know, like normally gearboxes and stuff like that, simply take the stock off, pull that back cap, and then the fourth one up here, you can activate the little tensioner for the engine. You'll be able to see that more in depth, but you'll be able to pull the engine out after that. And there you have the engine. I thought that was a pretty cool feature just in case if you maybe want to swap out engines, or you can actually look down and see jamming or your nub or anything like that if you really wanted to. So let me go ahead and pull apart this upper and then go further into this. Before I slide the upper off, I pulled the FCU out and I'm going to disconnect it. It's a lot easier to pull everything through without the FCU. Now you just got this wire. So the back takedown pin, pull it out. And your upper should slide off pretty easily. Let's make sure your wire doesn't get caught on anything. And then you have the back of the gun. Now you can see a little bit more of the internal components, like the board where the trigger contacts it, the adjustment screw, the arm. This is a little piece that I pushed down to release the engine. I'll go over that in a second. Your dial, there's 3 bolts that hold this main chamber onto the grip. One up front here, and then the 2 in the back, and then you can pull this whole thing off. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now we have the grip separated from the upper, and nothing extra on this other than the removable feed tube. I made this separate because if something's going to break, it's going to be where your mag's going in and out and activating the mag to release the BBs. So I made this a separate piece just in case this little piece breaks. You can simply replace it, or in the future if they need to be machined, that's an option. So it is removable. And I'm also working on a tab like the max units that holds the BBs in place when you remove the mag, because there's about 7 or 8 that gets stuck in between here and the hop up that when you pull the mag out, you lose all those. So I'm working on a feed tube that actually has a little catch that holds all your ammo. That pretty much covers the lower slash grip. By the way, this is all printed in PLA Plus, and that's changeable in the future, but this is just simply black PLA Plus, and it turned out pretty good. So let's put this aside, and now we can move on to the real important thing. Like I said in the beginning, this kit was designed pretty much from this part and worked around from there. So as you can see, I'm sliding the engine back in. It's going to get caught on that little latch. Push it forward, and then now your engine's in place. And if you want to remove it, you push this down and you can pull your engine out. Unfortunately, the wires for standard V2 stuff aren't long enough, so this is your standard length and it won't reach the back of the engine. So I'm making these little jumpers to go from your existing wire to the back. If you have a dual solenoid, there's going to be 2 of these. No big deal, just sucks that they don't reach. As far as the engine pin I'm talking about, you can see there's a number 3 on it, and I made 7 different variations. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the little nub that holds the engine in place is different on all these. You can see number 7 is closer to this edge and 1 is further in, and it's gradual as you go around. I've done a lot of measuring on different HPA engines and buckings and inner barrels, and it seems like everything varies. So that's why I made this, just in case your nozzle or whatever placement, even the print could vary. And this gives you adjustability as far as putting your engine in the right place so that your nozzle is right up against that bucking and not too far where it won't feed, or too far back and you'll lose a little bit of air seal. So that's the purpose of these engine pins. It's kind of a one and done thing. Once you initially set up your kit, you're not going to have to change these out. It's kind of more of a, if you're putting different engines in or you're trying to fine tune things, you have that option. But once you get your right little pin in there, you're not going to have to change them. As far as setting up, trying to figure out which number to use, drop in 1, 2, maybe 3, put your engine in. You don't even have to put this into the grip. You can wire everything up and obviously put air in, drop a BB down the feed tube, fire it. If it doesn't fall in, you know you need to take this out and go up a couple of numbers, repeat the process. If it still doesn't drop, go up, or if it does drop, you can try to go back the other way and try to fine tune it and get as close to that feed as possible. So it's a one-time thing. Once you get that number set up to your engine, you're not going to change it. And the nice thing is you just push this little tab right here and your whole engine comes right out. And like I said, that's to accommodate the varying dimensions as far as engines or where the little tabs are, or the nozzles, or even the print, like I said. So that engine pin covers it all. In front of that, you can see the arm that attaches to the dial. So this is the front mounting point to hold the barrel down onto the grip. That's all that does. And then your dial right here, pull that out. It's a very snug fit on the barrel. And the reason for that is, one, it keeps it, when you adjust it, it keeps it in place. And two, there's no wobble around the dial. And if there was, it would affect your arm, which would affect the pressure on the bucking. So you want this as solid as possible. And let's pull that off. You can see it's kind of got like a cammed groove on the front for the arm. So the more you turn it, the more it rides up, and that's how you adjust the flight. You might have seen in the beginning the little numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. That way you know when you're adjusting it where you're at, or if you take it apart, you know where you should be at when you apply hop again. Here is the arm that I've pulled out separately. This one has a little bit of a concave. There's a flat one that I've made just in case people want to try different things. I think as long as you have something flat that has decent surface area, you should be fine. But I know people want concave or V, whatever. So the availability to swap out the arm is pretty simple. The inner barrel, I think you can use anything from a 170 to about a 200. The 200 will push it out a little bit past this, but if you run a flash hider or compensator on this one, the 200 should fit inside perfectly. The 170, 180 fits, as you can see, it's about right there. So anywhere in that range, the inner barrel will work. On the bottom, you can see your standard V2 board. This is a little stubby one with one solenoid. I made it so you can fit the 2 solenoid boards on there. And there's a little cutout in the bottom here that you can fit both the wires through. Run in the back, there's a little slot that the engine won't hit them. You run both wires to the back, slide your engine in. So standard V2 boards will work. Unfortunately, right now in this setup, there is no safety or auto. It is strictly semi. There's not even a mechanical safety. I'm working on getting a proprietary board with a switch attached so you can go from the different modes, but that's luxury item right now at this point. This is a working prototype and I wanted to get it down before I moved on to the more intricate stuff like that. That covers the outside of this part. Let me go ahead and remove these 4 bolts which hold the inner barrel in place. With those 4 bolts removed, I went ahead and disconnected the solenoid wire as well. Now you can remove your barrel clamp. Simply pull straight up and there's your barrel and bucking, and then you can see there's little notches. That's what holds your barrel rotation in place. It's a very snug fit, so once you push it on there, that barrel's not going to rotate at all. As I said earlier in the video, hop-up units sometimes suffer from design process because of space. Me designing from the ground up, I knew I wanted something beefy, and with it being 3D printed, it's not as strong as metal. And aside from a collet system, I think this is one of the best systems for holding the inner barrel from rotating and also holding it. Once you clamp it in place, this thing is very solid. It will not move up and down, left or right. And like I said, that barrel rotation is locked down. So these 4 bolts, plenty enough pressure, gives you a nice solid setup. I actually surprised myself on another project that I'm working on. I used the same system, and over the course of about, I think it was about 16 inches, I slid this into a carbon tube, looked down the end of it, and the inner barrel was perfectly in the center of the carbon tube, which was crazy to me. It didn't even need the little spacer on the outside to prevent it. I thought that was pretty cool, but let's go ahead and pull this off. And then the inner barrel and bucking should slide out, and it's that simple. I think that pretty much wraps up the entire disassembly and going over everything. I didn't mention, but it accepts all your standard electro-pneumatic engines. So obviously Redline, Jack, F2, F1, your Wolverine engines, anything that has your solenoids. The grooves work better because the pin is kind of tough to line up when you push that pin down, but it's definitely possible. I like the grooves better, but any of your standard HPA engines will work. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. Like I said, this is very early prototype. It's fully functioning. Kind of reminds me of like an older Honda you take to the track that's got no AC. But I mean, it's got a built engine and it does its job. It's nothing fancy. So that's what kind of this reminds me of right now. Like I said, luxury items are to come. It's very easy to disassemble, and it was built from the ground up with performance in mind. So with that engine and hop-up unit basically being one piece, your alignment, your clamping, all of that is phenomenal. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Definitely stay tuned. I'm gonna try to post updates throughout the big changes I make with this, and I'm hoping to get it available really soon for you guys, maybe have something in the works. So I appreciate you watching, and stay tuned for more.